Welcome to the Cyber Health Podcast. I'm Stephen Perano, your host, and we're excited for this interview today. With me in the studio is Rob Petrosino, and he is a old school guy. And what I mean by that is when I first saw him a few months ago at the Emerge Americas on stage, I immediately identified with him in his character, his personality, but more importantly, his dress code. He's a very handsome guy. He's a great dresser. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And what a great intro. I got to add this to my bio.
Yeah, we met a couple months ago at Emerge Americas, the Immersive Week, right? It was an Immersive Week, and I saw you on stage, and I was very impressed by not only the way you spoke, but how you're able to articulate your words. And obviously, we're in a podcast here. We focus on communication, and communication is a big factor, not only into educating people, but also making connections. So thank you for providing us your time today. But tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, so I'm currently the Chief Innovation Officer at PeakActivity. We're a digital transformation company a little bit further north of here, over in the Delray area. And I'm also a Strategic Engagement Advisor with the FBI on artificial intelligence and emerging technology. And what that really means is, I would say 40 hours a week, but realistically, it's like 100 hours a week. My job is to understand the current trends when it comes to emerging technology, look at artificial intelligence and its application and what that means for both public sector and private sector organizations, as well as individuals as they either adopt AI or, worst case scenario, bury their head in the sand.
Right. And how did that come about with the FBI?
Yeah, so I was actually reached out to after one of my presentations on the West Coast. There was a conference out there. I was doing a presentation on artificial intelligence, specifically in the world of spatial computing. Spatial computing, fancy term for like what a camera can understand when it's looking at something. And I was able to have a really great presentation, which was awesome. I'm really thankful. And someone from the Bureau actually approached me and asked if I would present to them at the FBI. And at first I was a little hesitant, but then after having a little bit deeper of a conversation, I accepted. And that conversation of a presentation turned into, hey, can you do a couple more presentations? Hey, can you do a couple more? Then it turned into their Strategic Engagement Advisor program, which is run through their Office of the Private Sector, and coming on board with them. I think it's like 2 years now that I've been with them. So yeah, across 2 different administrations and a couple different leadership changes. But yeah, it's been a great experience.
That's exciting. Have you met Kash Patel?
Not yet. Hoping to, hopefully this month, if not next.
Let's take a step back first. And as I started the podcast mentioning how I met you and I saw you and your presence on stage. Now, can you give, for the people at home or maybe somebody that's interested in perhaps being a public speaker, is there any tricks of the trade?
Yeah. So this is my favorite thing. I've done presentations of like 5,000 people plus, and then I've done presentations that are like, 7 people in a boardroom. Right. And everyone always comes up to me and goes, how are you not nervous at all? And I was like, I wasn't always like this. Like this took a lot of time and practice for sure. So how I kind of got into it was, when I was young, I was pretty shy. I definitely did not like giving like book reports in the front of the classroom when you're a kid. Yeah, sure. So after that in college, I kind of grew this skill set of being able to speak in front of people. I played sports my whole life. I don't know if that hurt or helped, but I think that there's a big part of being able to just kind of like share your ideas and your concept. And post-college, the more that I was forced to be in front of people communicating an idea, the more I realized the high level of value of being succinct but impressionable when it comes to information, right? So I think if you're ever going to start out or go down the track of being a public speaker, or communicating ideas in general, whether it's in a meeting or in front of a stadium full of people, I think the big part of this is, one, doing it as much as humanly possible, because that exposure therapy is a real thing. It helps for sure. And then 2 is ask questions, right? I have people reach out to me all the time on every social media platform. Like, hey, how did you do this, X or Y? And I'm happy to give that insight. And really it's repetition, practice, understand that you may not know everything. And the last one that I always like hint at and people sometimes take or don't is your pace of how you talk is probably 5 times faster than how someone's hearing. So it's okay to take, it's okay to slow down a little bit. It's okay to take a breath. It's okay to take a sip of water. Those natural progressions when you're having conversations makes life a lot easier.
Right, and that's funny because that's exactly what I got from you when I saw you. I just felt like, oh, I'm talking to my best friend here, and I'm listening. And of course, I guess it also helps that I'm very passionate about technology and wanting to hear what you have to say. Let's talk about Peak Activity a little bit.
Yeah, so Peak Activity, digital transformation agency, our job is to help organizations move from wherever they are now to their ideal future state. Okay. Realistically, in a couple different areas, we help a ton of e-commerce organizations with their work, whether they want to move to a new platform, move to a new system, connect new applications in and of itself. Another big portion of what we do is what we would call like growth services. So like, how do I have, if I have a brand, if I have an organization, how do I make sure that their presence is known on the web? Whether that's, SEO, which is now transitioned into answer engine optimization, or, conversion rate optimization on a web page, A/B testing. And then my role and my side of the coin is all the emerging tech work. So if an organization is leading in those areas, inside or outside of e-commerce, in the B2B manufacturing side, even energy and some of the public sector side of things. If they're looking to emerge or move into this, innovation, emerging tech world, I can help guide that journey. All right. So I've been with the company for 7 years. The company's been around for a decade now. I think we're coming up into 11 years soon. And I think the natural progression is we can help an organization anywhere they are in the food chain. And if they're at that point of systems are great, rocking and rolling, excited about AI, and they want to get in there, they get to meet with me. And that's always a really fun experience. So nice. Help them guide into the future of that.
And how did you get involved with that?
Yeah, that's a great story. So I actually met my CEO at my former company that actually relocated me down here. I'm originally from the New York, New Jersey market. They reloaded me down here. I took a job out of Fort Lauderdale, and we actually had a joint client. So we actually met at a happy hour for that client. So that's how we got connected, started chatting. And about a calendar year later, I was actually, we were chatting and he offered me a role to come on board in the company. So, it's all about networking. It's all about who you know.
Right. So the power of a conversation.
For sure.
Because I know, like, even for myself, when I go online or just talk to people, there's so many different social events to go to. Along with your day-to-day, you're like, well, which one do I go? But you never know which one that you do end up going and who you're going to meet. So and then change your course for the next 7 years.
Yeah, right? my CEO has a great saying. He says all the time, and I actually posted about this on LinkedIn like a week ago. He's like, 90% of the battle is showing up. Right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's a gym or a social event or whatever. If you just show up, that's like 90% of the battle. The rest of the 10% is just being willing to talk to people and not stand against the wall. So, yeah, I completely agree with you.
Right. By the way, I'm also from New Jersey. I'm originally from New Jersey, North Jersey, Passaic, New Jersey.
Oh,
so
no,
funny?
I'm a Hackensack guy.
You go. So there you go, Bergen County.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. See, that's the connection we had,
That's what it was.
But we love it. We love it here in South Florida. How long have you been then?
I've been down here coming up on 8 years, almost 9 years now.
No kidding.
So yeah, I was a New York, New Jersey guy, born and raised. Went to school in Massachusetts, then came back and lived in the city for almost a decade, and then came down here. So
I'm sure you have some great stories.
I mean, this is just basically a transplant of everyone from the Northeast, anyway.
Right,
so it's
how concerned are you about humanoid robotics?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan when they started making robotics and humanoid robotics that could like walk upstairs. Like the age-old adage was like, if zombies and humanoid robots can't walk upstairs, we're a little safe, right? Like second floor, even down here in Florida. Like we don't have a lot of tall buildings, but I think when I think of scared, I think of it in two different areas. Any fear is related to like two things, trust and the unknown, right? So do I trust this situation, thing, object, technology, or the unknown of I don't know how this is going to radically change things? So when I think about humanoid robotics, the ability for them to radically change manufacturing, B2B, industrial, sectors of the economy, it is 100% present and really there. The latest Tesla robots that are out and some of the other major providers that are building out humanoid robots, they're fantastic. They not only can they do tasks at incredible rates of speed, but they can also, dance. Right. So like real wide variety of things. So that trusting and that fearfulness comes from there's going to be a radical change when it comes to how organizations operate. but also what investment costs it comes with hardware and technology, because now I have, humans are fairly low tech, right? We have, I know organizations that still use punch cards when they walk in, time out, right?
Wow, yeah.
So like that's rare, but there's still people that do that, or you keycard or badge into a key card or badge into for your hours. A robot's possibly going to be going 24/7, which means now you need support staff 24/7. Is that in-house support? Is that external support when one of these robots go down? How many do you have as backup? So there's a lot to be kind of fused out on that side. On the other side of the coin, if I put my Doomsday Terminator style hat on and do sci-fi projections, I like the idea of not having human life lost in international conflict. I like the idea better that we just don't have international conflict. Hopefully we get to that point. But I think that in that area, it's going to be an interesting time, place, and representation, because we've seen, robots in a lot of these different areas, but now these humanoid robots are going to change how even that side of the coin fits together and what that looks like for defense technology.
Right, absolutely. And of course, then also people like threat actors using it and manipulating it, and that whole aspect of it. Okay, we're going to bounce around these questions. Some of the questions I do get from listeners. I have a very small group where I kind of lean on for questions from different areas. I have some are parents, some are professionals, some are students, so I can get a wide range of questions from you.
Beautiful.
So you'll pretty much be able to tell by the question. For example, what can I do to keep my kids safe online?
I got asked this question. I want to say almost a calendar year ago when I was on a podcast. And most of those tips and advices are going to be very similar, and some of them are slightly different. So like number one is try not to share images of your child, right? Regardless of age, try not to, especially if they're like sub 18, if they're a minor, try not to share images of your child online. Definitely don't share a lot of images of your child online. Keep their anonymity and privacy there. That's really important when it comes to, child sexually explicit content, and that's CSAM. There's already, thankfully, we just actually signed a law related to that yesterday. And a bill that passed is called the Take It Down Act, related to like deep fake, child explicit content. So that's a good movement that we actually had that was relatively straightforward, but protect their identity as much as humanly possible, right? So that includes photos of them, that includes voice, includes video. All those things can be used in nefarious purposes. If you are going to have them have social media, make sure it's limited. Their age is verified that they are a minor. Make sure you have all the proper parental controls that are available to you. Make sure you're tracking what's going on there, and understand that they're going. Once you open up that door does not get closed. That would be probably primary number 2, and number 3 is going to be set up what I'll call non-digital lines of communication in case something happens. Digital kidnapping is a real thing. So that's when I steal a portion of your identity or your identity and then use it to manipulate your wife, your family, your kids, your grandparents, your parents into paying me money, even though I don't have you hostage. Hey, I have so-and-so. I have your grandmother. Here's a clip of her voice yelling and screaming. Send me $5,000 or I'm going to, murder her. Mm-hmm. That's a very scary situation, especially when they're like, send it to me in the next 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So going through that verification process of making sure that you have that person available and they're able to be talked to, and there's a traditional means or code words or that type of stuff that you can have a conversation with if something's a serious or non-serious situation, because the replication of children is the same as grandparents and the same as parents and husbands, wives, etc. Those are your major threat vectors. So bad actors are looking for ways to either get money out of you or push influence on you or something of the like, do harm to you in some way. So that's a very traditional way that you can protect them, is just keep that identity and that personalization off of them as much as humanly possible. Make sure that you have non-digital means of communication, and just be smart, right? If you do open that door and you do allow them on that path, make sure you have realistic conversations that there are bad people out there. They should be aware of these things, and you should be doing the best that you can to monitor those. And that comes from the real fact that parents are not going to be as digitally savvy as children.
Right.
So that's a spade's a spade, but you got to do your homework. This is an area that you actually need to do the homework in.
Sure. Okay. So there you go. For any of you parents that are watching, educate yourself. That is the first line of defense, is what I preach all the time. Educate yourself on whatever it is that you're concerned about, especially when it comes to your children. How large of a problem is virtual kidnapping?
It's massive. We've seen it manifest itself. There used to be like core centers that we would see these things happen, right? Latam and Central America was an area that it happened in, and then it happened sometimes in Eastern Europe, and then it started to like be a little bit more pervasive into the U.S. and European Union directly. But now it's pretty much a global issue and phenomenon that's actually happening. So it's a massive problem. Virtual kidnapping happens often. Anytime, I'll give you a perfect existence. It doesn't just happen at the kid level. It doesn't just happen at the parent level, but it also can happen on the corporate level. Hey, I am a C-suite executive. I post on LinkedIn that I'm going to Malaysia for a trip. Well, that C-suite executive that posts that content is now able to be used by a bad actor to say, hey, I'm from a Malaysian gang, send me 3,000 Bitcoin, or this guy is going to get offed, etc. And they have a way to get back to your company, right? And they're going to go and pressure your company for it, and then go to your family and do it. Same type of thing. So understanding that all the information, all the digital breadcrumbs that you have, that you leave out there are going to be used by not only you to find your way back home, but also for someone else to find you or your home. So it's a very pervasive problem. I think there was, in the first half of 2024, I think out of Mexico City alone, there was somewhere around 250 plus virtual kidnappings reported.
Let's focus on how truly accurate are LLMs.
Yeah, so this is an interesting topic. So as of 2 years ago, everyone was talking about hallucinations, and hallucinations are just when a large language model or an artificial intelligence makes up an answer. You can see what this is like if you right now, the easy way of doing it is you upload a photo of yourself. You don't have to use yourself or a celebrity, and say recreate this image, but don't change anything, right? And naturally it changes things, right? Because of how the technology is fit together, right? It's how transformer technology work, and we're not going to dive into that, but it can't make exact replicas of things, specifically the image world. That said, accuracy is consistently being upticked as being better and better and better. Some reports are saying the latest models of ChatGPT are 50% accurate. Other reports are saying 80% accurate. And it really depends on the types of questions that you're asking it and what information it's connected to, right? So if I'm asking it, hey, who's my sister, right? It doesn't know really who I am unless I've had a bunch of prior conversations. So it probably doesn't know my sister's name. It probably can find some of that information on the internet, but it's not going to be able to tie that information together. Now, that's one option. Or I could have just asked it to write a Christmas letter to my whole family, and one to my mom, one to my dad, one to my sister, one to my brother, one to my uncle, etc. And now it has the information related to them because I went through this prompting experience to write these Christmas letters about my past year and how it reminded me of X or Y thing. So it's really data dependent.
Gotcha.
AI still lies. It lies all the time. Trust but verify information that comes out of an artificial intelligence or any system. But all of that is blanketed by the fact that there's more than one type of artificial intelligence. Generative AI does a really good job at sounding like a human, creating human-like content, code, video, text, image, voice. And that has hallucination problems. Analytical AI or just machine learning, it's got high probability, very, very low thresholds for hallucinations, very, very high accuracy ratings. And that's why your Tesla doesn't drive into the other side of the road all the time. It uses a lot of machine learning on that tooling. So depending on what situation you're talking about and what type of situation, they can have variances on how truthful they are.
Okay, great. And to take a step back from that, and again, this is for the more of the students that are perhaps watching this, AI versus AGI versus ASI.
Okay, yeah. This is a good one. So artificial intelligence is where we're at now. Artificial intelligence, really big bucket terminology, is that I can give artificial intelligence something and it'll give me something back. Okay, so it really is the consolidation and decision making based on data. Okay, that's artificial intelligence. I give it some information, it consolidates that information, checks it against its database or the web or whatever, and then provides me back something. That's really where we are there. So a system that has some level of, computer intelligence to it. Artificial general intelligence, this is a term that is fiercely debated because a lot of people have a lot of different ideas of what that actually means. The way that I would propose it is a single artificial intelligence or multiple artificial intelligence with combined compute power equal to a human brain. Okay? That in and of itself sounds really, really scary because is it the human brain of a 6-year-old? Is it a human brain of a 30-year-old? Is it a human brain of a postdoctorate researcher? Right?
Sure.
So like there's a pretty wide stance there when you can call AGI. But as people call it, it is as smart as a human. Some people define it as smart as the smartest human on Earth, which is a different way of thinking it. But AGI there's human level intelligence there. So that means you have to have an understanding of reasoning, thought, recognition, right? You have to have some level of consciousness. It needs to know what it is. It has to be pretty highly accurate. It has to be able to do some things. We're going to come back to that AGI bucket in a second after we defined ASI. So artificial superintelligence is now the culmination of all intelligence of the human race and an artificial intelligence being better than the culmination of all the intelligences that are available. Okay? So now that gets scary. That's that's a scary thought because now this is not the smartest single person, but is this the smartest all people combined into an artificial intelligence? So a lot of people say that AGI, if it is the smartest human, singularly, in 7 minutes, in 10 minutes, it'll be able to create ASI, an artificial superintelligence, because it is smarter than the smartest human. So that's a very scary kind of threshold. That ASI situation, people talk about it being the inflection point of humans giving birth, AGI and ASI, the humans giving birth to the next generation of really organisms that can functionally operate on their own, et cetera. So we are literally, birthing that technology path. AI is where we are. AGI, smartest human. ASI, the culmination of all humans. That's really how I would break it down. That middle bucket, though, of AGI, there's some level of human interaction that has to happen, right? Like, how can we tell if it knows all that it knows? How do we know that it's conscious? And we used to rely on a test to see how persuasive artificial intelligence was. It was called the Turing Test. And the Turing Test is simply you sit in front of a screen and you ask a question. It goes the question goes to a computer. The same question goes to a human, and they respond back. And you pick, this is the computer, this is the human. Pretty standard stuff. ChatGPT's latest 4.5 model is passing the Turing Test or fooling humans of saying that they're the human and not the computer at a rate of 80%.
Wow.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Because we're not at AGI, but we're passing the Turing Test. So if it can pass the Turing Test, it can definitely lie to you.
Right.
So how do you know? There's this whole ethical conversation of how do you know that we've reached AGI if it has superhuman or the most intelligent human level of intelligence out there right now? It's a very scary thought.
That is scary. So we're talking about advanced Terminator,
this is Matrix level, right? Like Matrix where you're just kind of you're floating through the simulation and you're plugged into the machine and you don't even know AGI or ASI really exist.
And it starts leaking over into quantum then.
Very much so. So one of the big hurdles between now AGI and then AGI to ASI is compute power, energy, and data storage. Those are your big, big, big issues, right? Do we have enough compute power? Is quantum computing and the quantum chipset going to be able to unlock AGI Will we have enough energy to build the actual artificial intelligences? It's already an issue. Sam Altman was in the Congress just recently saying that energy should be the number one focus right now for artificial intelligence companies, and making sure that they have the appropriate levels of energy and data infrastructure so that they can train the next version of the models. And then the data centers, right? You need more data. If we're going to train artificial intelligence, we don't want to just train it on synthetic data or AI-generated data. We need to do it on human-based data too. So there's a couple throw levers in there, but quantum is one of those throw levers that will change how quickly we get to AGI and ASI because of the massive amount of compute output that can actually happen versus like a traditional NVIDIA H100 current state chipset.
Okay. And you mentioned about energy. Energy is the main source of what we need to get to this point. On the flip side of that, you have some people that say, well, we're concerned about trying to create and find ways to have all this energy to run AI and quantum, but what about our own energy running our power grid?
Yeah.
Right? And that whole concept.
Yeah. So as it stands right now, the power grid cannot keep up with the demand of a lot of these artificial intelligence, large language, frontier or foundational model creators, right? Foundational models being like the ChatGPT 4.5 or 5, et cetera. So foundational frontier model would be like an organization working on something that's like proprietary, novel, and completely new. These companies are struggling with the current infrastructure when it comes to energy because the current infrastructure within the U.S. is not great, right? If you're driving, we live in Florida, right?
Right.
We, for a very long time, still have parts of Florida that have wood telephone poles, right?
Right.
You and I both know, for living down here as long as we have, wind is a real thing.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
Right?
Sure.
Those poles come down, especially
Yes,
during
they do.
storms.
Right.
So like that is a very real manifestation when we think of like electrical infrastructure for the U.S. So that's why you're seeing the Microsofts, the Googles, the OpenAI, the minstrels start signing contracts and deals with small nuclear power plant companies or micro nuclear power plant companies to power their data centers so they can have direct line access to this energy. And that's one of the areas that's actually of concern, is because of the energy and infrastructure that we have and how poor it is, the privatization of energy overall and the energy infrastructure. How do you balance the common good, the good of all, versus this corporate requirement to continuously push technology, monetize it, make it better? And how do you serve the people that don't have power, have limited power, have brownouts, et cetera? And there's going to be a hand-in-hand conversation at some point where I would assume the government's going to be involved. Like, hey, OpenAI, you have a nuclear power plant, you're using 70% of its power, you need to divert the rest of the 30% of its power into this grid, this neighborhood, et cetera, to make sure that you're fulfilling the common good aspect of things.
So that being said, do you think that they will address that and try to focus on our power for the country? I
think that infrastructure is a huge opportunity for the U.S. government and making things even better than they already are. Like we have a very good system, right? We have very few areas that don't have power, right? We're very lucky in that regard in the U.S. So there is massive opportunities. I do think that we'll at some point have the government kind of come in and help right the ship on that. But we're very much a hands-off government entity, right? The things that we always hear is, our government lags behind when it comes to technology adoption and that type of stuff, rules, regulations, et cetera. And we've seen that manifest itself over the last several decades, whether it's the web or social media and now AI. We're a little bit trailing when it comes to that stuff. And that's because of free market capitalism, and the rules and regulations that we have, et cetera. So those regulations usually are a little bit later in the food chain. So I'm not expecting something tomorrow by any means.
Right.
But it's something that'll probably come about at some point.